How many times was something a really bad idea, but executed so well that it worked?
You started your career in a video rental situation, and now you run one of the most important companies in entertainment.
What if the kid behind the counter at the video store became the man who rewrote Hollywood?
You're a college dropout, your father was an electrician, you're nothing that, I expected.
It is not the normal path.
Ted Sarandos, Netflix co-CEO, is getting real about what it really takes to climb from nowhere to the top of the entertainment industry.
If the prize is big enough, you should take pretty unreasonable risk.
How do you know when to double down and when to walk away?
You have to celebrate wins and you have to demystify losses. You can't have this mythological fear of losing. If you give the right people the tools they need to do the best work of their life, they want to please.
So how do you decipher who's the right people?
How do you trust your gut when the data says otherwise?
Don't let the possibility of a downside take away the probability of an upside.
And how do you keep innovating when you're already on top?
We suck today compared to what we're going to be tomorrow.
Do you think about Netflix as something that saved Hollywood or ruined it? Ted Sarandos, thank you so much for being here today on the Aspire podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really, really happy to have you. I have to say, when I read everything about you, I'm already unbelievably impressed by you, but I think the reason why listeners of this show will die when they hear your story is because, first of all, you don't have a typical story. You don't have a typical resume. And in my most English girl way, I'm going to say it like this and hope it's not offensive, but you started your career in a video rental situation type of career.
That is true.
And now you run one of the most important companies in entertainment. And it's just so unbelievably mesmerizing to me how you've made that journey. And I think so inspiring to people that perhaps come from, it's like you're a college dropout, your father was an electrician, you're nothing that, I expected.
It is not the normal path.
I was like, this is so inspiring. This is so incredible. But I think it is really inspiring to people because, again, a lot of us aspire to a career in entertainment and you have one of the most impressive ones. So I guess my question really to you is I want you to take me back to you being a kid. What do you think ultimately in your childhood would tell me that you were going to have the type of career that you have today?
I don't know if there's like an actual flashpoint that would say, that's what I'm going to do. Because growing up, I always wanted to be a journalist. Like the first thing I remember wanting to be is a reporter. I always thought they were heroic people. They thought it was what a great job this must be. So I was like a editor of the high school newspaper and for a couple of years of my community college newspaper. And
you went to community college?
I went to 2 years of community college. Did not get that degree either.
It's all right.
Well, I spent the whole time working on the newspaper.
Yeah,
I loved
there you
it so
go.
much. But then I was kind of getting to this point where I was going to try to go to university. I was applying for a scholarship because I had to pay for my own school. And I was putting together all my clippings and I realized I wasn't a very good writer. And no one ever told me. So
part.
So I'm reading it. I'm like, wow, if I didn't write this, I probably wouldn't keep reading this.
Fair.
So I just I was my part-time job while I was doing all this was working in the video store. So that for me, the epiphany was, wasn't that I was going to be in entertainment, just that I was not going to be a journalist.
Sometimes that process of elimination is a good thing too, though,
sure.
right? You're like, okay, definitely not that.
I just wish I'd have learned it sooner.
How old are you at this point?
19, 20 years old.
And what's your family background? Tell us a bit about.
I can tell you back to the other, why entertainment.
Yeah.
So for me, you're a product of your parents, for better or worse, right? And my parents were very young, so they had 4 kids in their 20s.
Oh, wow.
My dad, you mentioned, was an electrician, hardworking guy. My mom stayed home to raise the kids. And because his were like young parents, they were like, it was chaotic in my house all the time. So we didn't have bedtime. We didn't have structured things that parents
Where
typically
are you in
do.
the 4?
I have 3 older sisters, and I have a younger brother, Joey, who passed away a few years ago.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But in the house, like I said, my parents, and I used to be very angry about it, to be honest with you, that why weren't my parents more traditional? Why didn't they make sure I did my homework? And the
Parents can't win, whatever they do.
I
If you've
know.
got the traditional ones, you don't want them.
Exactly.
If you don't, you're like, I want a bedtime.
But I just came to realize that they were just kids. They didn't know any better. And
no doubt.
So when they're in their 40s, they were kind of recapture their 20s, because if you have to get that stuff out of your system at some point. So anyway, so that for me, I had this, I would go visit my mom's mom, my grandmother. I called her Nanny, at her house, and she loved entertainment. She had the National Enquirer and all People magazine, all those things out all the time. When I would stay up late anyway, I would sit up with her and watch The Tonight Show, Johnny Carson.
Amazing.
And she would always talk about celebrities on a first name basis. So it wasn't Carson, it was Johnny. Oh, can you believe Johnny last night? And I remember one point, I don't remember who did what to who, but it was like, did you hear what Mac did to Glenn? I go, who? Mac Davis and Glenn Campbell.
Your
There was
friends,
a whole thing.
I've got it.
So yeah, exactly. And so, and what I did find was that it was a very, like when I would go to my grandma's to visit, it was an escape from the chaos at our house.
Yeah.
So for me, I always had these really positive connections to television and to entertainment and to celebrity.
That's so interesting. So somewhere in the calm of going to your nannies, you found a love of entertainment, but it was also like a space where you were away from the chaoticness of what you knew to be home.
Yeah, so I think when you're raised, you're going to either grow up to be just like you were raised or the polar opposite. And I went polar opposite. Yeah. I didn't want to have a chaotic life. And for me, like even that bit about not having a dinner time and bedtime and all this thing, TV.
You wanted the stability.
Yeah, and TV had a structure.
Yes.
Happy Days was on at 7:00 on Channel 3 every Tuesday night, right? So you didn't have to, it was very structured. Television was very structured.
Happy Days, I used to love that show. That was huge in England as well.
Yeah.
Just so crazy. Yeah. So you go on the journey of trying to become, well, not really trying to become a journalist, but you're fancying journalism. You realize you're not a fantastic writer. At what point does it become clear that entertainment is a career? And talk to me about that kind of initial stint in the video rental space.
So working in these stores, it was a part-time gig. It was early in the whole life cycle of video stores. It was before Blockbusters. There was these mom and pop independent stores. It was the second store in the state of Arizona that opened up. It was called Arizona Video Cassettes West. Now that's a good title.
Catchy name.
It's got everything in the title. It's all in the title.
You know exactly where you are and what you're going there for.
Yeah, even though the region, it's on the west part. Yeah. And also implied,
not marketing genius.
Well, I thought what was great about it, the guy who owned the place, Dale Mason. What I liked about it was aspirational right away. He called it West because he knew there'd be a north and a south and an east.
There you go. He had dreams.
Good
old Dale. Do you still know him now?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in quite a while, but I do stay in touch.
And what was your role? What were you doing?
This was like a serendipitous thing. My young crazy parents, my mom, I always thought we were poor. And it turns out my mom was just really bad with money. Because my dad
There's a difference.
Yeah, my dad made money and she just blew it. And,
wow.
And we always had, we may not have the electricity and the gas on at the same time. We might get evicted from the house, but we had a VCR before anyone else did, like that kind of thing.
What was she doing with the money?
Just like that. There's extravagances that we couldn't afford. But so we had a VCR, and then this video store opens around the corner from our house. So I could walk there. And I used to go in and I met this guy, Dale, who owned the store, and we would talk about movies. I love movies, and we just talked about movies all the time. And being a journalism student in Arizona, you were aware of Spike Lee and John Sayles and these things, but there was no place to see those movies in Arizona at the time before the video stores. So for me, it's like I thought this was like almost like one of those aha moments in life. And so Dale said, "Do you need a job?" I needed a job, so I got a job. And then I went to him after I had this epiphany about not being a journalist and said, "I don't think I'm going to be a journalist. I'm not going to go to university." And I need some time to figure out my next act. And he said, "Oh, good." He said,
"We need someone."
Yeah, because he had opened a bunch of stores in the meantime, over that couple of years, and he wanted somebody to kind of take him over for him so he could spend some time with his kids and his wife. And he just gave me the keys to this, multi-store chain with no real experience or, basically he was learning. I looked at it like an MBA course and film school all wrapped up in one.
Even at that time, you did.
Yeah, because at that time, the video stores were empty all day.
Yeah.
And then for 2 hours, they'd be jammed, and then they'd close and clean up. And all day when the things were empty, we'd watch movies. I'd watch every movie in the store. So like I just got a real grounding in the things you would learn at film school and how movies talk to one another. And if you like this, you're going to like this. All those things I didn't know in the moment that it was preparing me for what I'm going to do next. But it really was, for sure. So I had this kid with no business experience negotiating leases and doing the programming and the marketing, hiring and firing the employees, paying the taxes. And
oh my goodness, it really was. It was like a business MBA.
And Dale took a big chance on a young kid who he trusted. So
did you have a vision for your career at that point?
No.
Nothing.
No.
You were like just in the here and now.
I'm not going to be a journalist. I love how can I do the thing that I love? And I did. I really did love. I didn't realize even that there was a business to get these movies. So my next step was to go from running the stores to working for the distributor who sold the movies to the stores.
And how important do you think it is for people to really understand a career like from the trenches? Because it seems like, I mean, you literally started right at the bottom.
I mean, it's the version of the working in the mailroom, whatever that is. Yeah. But you want to be, to me, it's like the best part of that was I was in direct contact with the end user. So the people would come in excited to watch the movie, and then they would return it and tell me if they liked it or not. I mean, I really was a full circle contact with the end user. And that's what I think really prepared me for everything I do now.
It's interesting because I feel like so much of your career has been about the end user, the customer, the data, really understanding that. But you had an early purview on all of that stuff. And so you knew it was important before we spoke about it.
For sure. Yeah. I used to marvel at how long it would take for people to decide what movie to rent. Right? You'd walk around, you read all the boxes.
There for hours.
Right, longer than you'd watch. And then I finally started asking people, and they would tell me all these different stories about how important the choice was. Like, I don't have a lot of money, so this is a big deal for me.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of time, so I don't want to watch a bad movie. I'm trying to avoid wasting my time. Or the one that always surprised me was I'm picking it out for my family or my friends, and it says a lot about me.
Yes.
So I want people to respect my choice.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I spent so much time in the video shop as a kid. Yeah. And it was like such a treat. My mum would say, like, because there's 4 of us, and she'd pick which one of us was going with her. Yeah. And it was like, that was a really big deal. You'd get to go because you were deciding on the weekend. Like, how is our weekend going to start, right? And it's like this big decision. And I was obsessed with, because back then it was videos, and I had all the Disney movies, and they had these holograms on them. And for me, it's like I just wanted all the holograms stacked up next to each other. And so it's interesting how formative those memories are and what that time does for you. But you really took it as an education in entertainment at that time and an education in customer behavior.
And I don't know how deliberate it was. You know what I mean? Part of me, I think, I was just curious. And the other part was I think I was trying to figure out. I didn't know how I was going to go from Phoenix, Arizona to Hollywood at all, just geographically, let alone professionally.
Did you have anxiety about your career at that point?
Probably not, because I really was enjoying it so much. And I didn't really think about where I was going to go next. I just, at that time, I was just really enjoying it. And one of those things where I was almost shocked that this was a job.
Yeah. You were like, I can't believe somebody's given me these keys. Yeah. So fast forward to me. So you joined Netflix in 2000. And in 2000, it was still a DVD by mail service. So will you talk to me just about that time where you were at? Yeah. Like, how did you even make that association?
So I went from the stores to the Arizona Video Cassettes West became Superstar Video. Same, just better name. And then I went
not quite Blockbuster though, was
Not
it?
quite Blockbuster, pre-Blockbuster still. But then went from there to a company called East Texas Distributing. There's a pattern here.
There is, clearly.
And this was the company that sold the movies to all the stores.
Right.
And then I did a very brief stint back at a regional chain called West Coast Video. And that's when I came to find out about Netflix. I found out about it first from I opened a DVD player, and there was a card in there for a company called Netflix where you could get 10 free rentals with this card. It was a sample thing. And I read it. I remember distinctly seeing it thinking, oh, that's cool, and just putting it aside. And then I get a call from a friend of Reed Hastings, who was the founder of Netflix, who said he would like to meet me.
Did you know who Reed was?
I did not know who he was at that point, but I knew what Netflix was as a company, but I didn't understand why he wanted to meet me yet. I had done a deal while I was at West Coast Video to do video rev sharing with Warner Brothers and Sony It was the first kind of deal of its kind. It got, into a trade magazine, and Reed read about it, and he said, I need that deal. Because at that time, Netflix was growing very fast, and we couldn't afford the inventory.
Yes, yeah.
So how do I, it's basically just to help fund the growth of the company, revenue sharing would be a good thing. And he didn't really know anybody in distribution or in Hollywood. So they called and asked if I'd go out and meet him. My very first e-commerce transaction was buying that plane ticket.
No, it was not.
Reed. Yeah.
No, it was not.
Yeah, it was
so you weren't quite like
world.
a digital whiz at that
No,
point.
no.
You weren't
I was a video store
thinking
guy.
about
I was a movie guy. Yeah. So when I even then, I remember walking into the lobby at the office at Netflix, and there was mountains and mountains of boxes. I'm like, what is all this? And the receptionist says, oh, these are all the people who work here just ordering their stuff online, like drugstore.com and razorblade.com, and people just living their life online already, which was a complete, that was my introduction to this idea. Even.
Wow, you were like, I did not know about this.
Yeah.
This is not how I'm living my life. Right
Not
now.
at all. Not at all. Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that was only 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a whole different world now.
Right.
Completely. So this year, you've been at Netflix for 25 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lifetime in a company. But I really want to understand, what did those early days look like, and how did you even begin to think about transitioning yourself from being like a video store guy into being a tech guy, an entertainment guy, and being, having this position at Netflix?
So I think some part of the curiosity that even I could have just went to work behind the counter of the store, checked out the movies and went home and not thought about it again. But I think all of that has kind of helped for me in how to better understand people and what jobs they have and what do they do that contributes to this success of the company, and how passionate are they about doing this, and are these the best people for doing this job? Are people in the right roles? It's all about casting in so many ways. And I used to, we couldn't afford to have an LA office back then at the early days of Netflix, so I worked in my bedroom a couple of days a week, and I would go up to Silicon Valley a couple of days a week, and I was sitting in the cubes in between all the engineers. And they would hear me yelling on the phone because I was used to being alone, so making a lot of noise and disrupting. And they would like to work very quietly, so but they would hear the kind of workings of the business a little bit. And I would be very curious about what they were doing. They were very curious what I was doing, and we kept each other kind of curious about the business and informed each other about how the tech and the entertainment part of the business kind of intersected.
And you were brought in to do exactly what from the beginning?
I was the vice president of product, and so that was basically how to get the inventory. Basically, we were buying movies, by the way, on DVD from Walmart when I first joined the company. So people would go to Best Buy and buy inventory.
That is wild.
My goal when I came in, it was to get direct with the studios that sell the movies, and then eventually to develop business plans with them, like our rev share.
Did you see the vision really clearly when you first sat down with Reed? Just thinking about what Netflix is today, was that mapped out and there was this huge giant vision and you got that? Or are you just like, I'm going to take a chance on what this is right now?
Honestly, it sounded nuts to me.
It did.
So yeah. Reed, I never met anyone like him. He had such a clear vision for the future that was not rooted in any current reality. You know what I mean? Normally you can see a little sample of something, it's going to be like that. It's going to be like that. And for Reed, it was, no, all entertainment is going to come into the home on the internet. Now, at this time, no entertainment came into the home on the internet. It was too slow and too expensive. And he said, to go from that, he took us all the way to the end. He goes, no, in fact, if you think you're still going to be getting your entertainment on cable, you shouldn't, not only don't take this job, don't buy my stock when I go public.
Wow. Wow. That is crazy.
It was the ultimate contrarian thesis, right?
Yeah.
And those are the big wins whenever they work.
Those are the really big wins.
So he was, so he laid this out. I wasn't even sure I believed him, to be honest with you, but I thought that this is the kind of person who changes the world in some dimension.
And you knew that?
Yeah, for sure.
So what did your early days look like? You're on the phone, you're doing these big deals with the studios.
So the interesting thing is, I think the entertainment business there's a lot of people who want to be in the business, as you mentioned earlier, but finding out the people who want to work in it is really important. I think that's the beauty of the kind of going to the mailroom for the people who want to do it. Because you have to struggle, You
do have to struggle.
Yeah, and that's the way you kind of separate the folks who want to be in it and the people who want to work in it. And for me, it was, I've also come to understand that this is really a trust business. People are they do not want to make a bad call on their watch. So the more you know them, the better. And
so it's like a relationship business.
Very much a relationship business. Yeah. And I knew all the people who were running home entertainment at that time because of my days in the video store. They used to come in and sell me movies. So the guy who would become the head of Disney at that time, Bob Chapek, used to sell VHS movies to me out of a book.
That is wild.
So you got to know these people in a way that was very helpful. That you say, hey, if I'm going to do something that's a risk, I'll take a risk with someone I know and trust.
But I imagine because obviously what you were doing before was very traditional, and you essentially were bringing something very new to all of these, guys. So I wonder what rules did you have to rewrite, and what kind of behaviors did you have to throw out entirely? Because it was a whole new world what you were doing.
Well,
at
one
Netflix
thing for sure is you had to be very transparent.
Right.
So if there was anything that was going to surprise anybody, give them a heads up. Because if you're the new character, if you're doing things that are different than everybody else, you've got to give a lot of people to understand that people are very nervous about making that bad call with the new guy who's unproven and all those things. So really being unbelievably accessible and transparent, above and beyond.
Is that who you are anyway? Do you think?
I think ultimately it is. That's why it came naturally to me when I saw that coming. I could relate to the fact that someone who's investing into a career doesn't want to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yes,
and
totally.
we could avoid that by just saying, hey, here's something that's going to happen. You're going to read about it, whatever it is, and just here's what's going on. So if you get asked. And it just developed that habit very early.
And you developed that over and over.
People definitely took bets on us.
Yes, of course. I mean, they had to because you were doing things that nobody had done before, and so they had to take bets.
It was pretty unintuitive. I mean, it's hard for people to imagine now how big Blockbuster was at that time. So if anyone had an idea that they were going to take on Blockbuster, that seemed insane. They were the biggest entertainment brand in the world.
That's crazy to think about. Yeah, I mean, we can't even fathom that
Stores
now because
all over the world.
they're completely gone now, or am I?
Gone. Yeah, there's one novelty store. I think it's like an Airbnb where you can go sleep in the video store. But I tell my kids all the time, having worked in a video store, it's like being a blacksmith. That's like a job that just does not exist anymore.
It's just totally gone. But you must have been doing something tremendously right to rise through the ranks of this company at that time. And I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit for anybody that's listening that is part of, a very high growth company or a company that's really going places. What did you do not just to survive, but to really scale yourself as it was all happening?
So I had, back in that middle where I worked in the distribution company at ETD, there was a guy. So my life, by the way, was kind of peppered with these inspiring non-traditional mentors.
Lucky you.
And I don't even know that they knew that they were mentoring. You know what I mean? But they would say these very poignant things that were very useful always. If you listen, you have to listen.
You have to listen.
So Ron Eisenberg was the CEO of East Texas Distributing. And what was interesting about entertainment distribution is you basically all of your customers you sell to, and you need to have all the studios to be able to sell them. So he would always say to me, he goes, well, you've got customers on one hand and suppliers on the other. Just kiss every ass presented. That was his comment. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, because you have to make sure that you're taking care of two constituencies all the time that have very different agendas.
Right.
So the idea that you can't just go to work and do one thing every day is you have to keep these people satisfied and these people pleased all the time, which I think embedded that kind of customer first mode to me. And the difference between video distributors wasn't much. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was they bought from the company and the person that they trusted and liked.
And that was that.
That was that.
That was that.
Yeah.
So it was just about trust.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, it's so interesting to me.
Looking for a better way to refresh your summer wardrobe? Daily Look is the #1 highest rated premium personal styling service for women. Daily Look connects you with your own dedicated personal stylist, a real stylist, not an algorithm, who curates a box of up to 12 premium pieces based on your body shape, preferences, and lifestyle. Try everything on in the comfort of your own home. Keep what you love and return the rest. Shipping is free both ways. With flexible delivery options, you can receive a box every 30, 60, or 90 days, making it easy to fit your wardrobe refresh into your schedule. Daily Look saves time, takes the guesswork out of shopping, and offers a truly personalized experience with the same stylist every time. Elevate your style by signing up at dailylook.com today. Take your style quiz at dailylook.com and get 50% off your first styling fee with the code ASPIRE. That's dailylook.com, code ASPIRE. This episode of Aspire is brought to you by 3 Olives Vodka, because you shouldn't have to compromise what you want. Made in the USA, 3 Olives Vodka is 0 sugar, 100 calories or less, and gluten-free, so you can enjoy a cocktail without overthinking it. And let's be honest, whether you're building a business, leading your team, or taking care of everyone else, you deserve something that feels easy and tastes amazing. Whether it's my favorite, a classic vodka soda, or an espresso martini with friends, reach for 3 Olives Vodka. Next time you're picking up something for your bar cart, look for 3 Olives Vodka and let it be your reminder to celebrate your wins, big or small. To learn more and find 3 Olives Vodka near you, head to 3olives.com. Cheers. Copyright 2025 Proximico, 3olives.com. Please drink responsibly.
So when did you start to transition in that company to like a closer model of how we see Netflix today? Like what happened?
So again, the reason I think we made it is because it was always in the plan. It's called Netflix, not Mailflix or DVDflix even. And it was always in the vision that this would be a digital distribution company.
Right.
Reed described Netflix to me in 1999 almost exactly like it is right now. I mean,
it's unfathomable to think about. Because at that point, as you said, you weren't even using the internet as we do today. Yeah. You weren't ordering things like we do. The idea that you would just like sit in your
even just getting
living room and scroll like that.
Getting
there
the
wasn't
internet
a
to
thing.
the TV is something we completely take for granted now, but it didn't even exist then. And so this whole notion of it, like we talked about downloading instead of streaming back then, because there was no concept even of streaming back then.
Of course.
So when we think about that, that's the only thing that ever really connected about the plan was, how are you going to manage all these files and all that kind of stuff? And then streaming goes, streaming's going to solve that. So we don't need to manage anything.
I'm interested, Ted, because you were like such an entertainment guy. Yeah. The digital piece was like a learning curve for you. You didn't understand that. Like, how much did you get yourself involved, understanding that was the future? You could see this blueprint that Reed had kind of, said, this is where we're going. Did you immediately like try to start understanding what the engineers sitting next to you were doing?
Yeah, gradually. I mean, because I felt like I just learned as much as I needed to get my deals done, first of all, and to get these, to deliver on the things that we were promising.
Yeah. Because I can imagine you would be sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, there's this whole part of this company that I don't really understand or I need to learn, otherwise I'll be left out of it. I just wonder, was there any part of
Almost
that?
Immediately. And the bigger part for me was actually understanding the tech culture.
Very different culture.
Very different. And even at one point, there was an early executive staff meeting, and one of the guys who was our head of product at that time said to me, I forgot what he said even, but it sounded a little loaded, So afterwards, I asked somebody on the way out, I said, hey, when he said that, what do you think he meant? And he goes, oh, no. He's incapable of saying anything but exactly what he means.
Exactly.
He means exactly what he said. And you go, oh.
It's not coded. It's just a tech
100%.
guy. It's just a tech guy.
100%. And I did find every once in a while with that same guy, he would say to me when sometimes I'd be asking for something and I'm trying to get his buy-in on something, and he would repeat back to me and nod a lot. And I would leave thinking,
he's understood it.
We got it.
Yeah, no problem.
What he was doing, he was just taking it all in. And he was acknowledging that he heard me. And then he'd go home and think about it for 24 hours.
Wow.
And he'd come back and have the most remarkable insight and question that I thought we were all settled. And every once in a while, he would unearth something that made what we just talked about impossible.
That's just insane.
And it was, so it was the art of the company always from the beginning was kind of managing both.
Yeah, and it's an art, right? Because seemingly these two industries between tech and entertainment are very, very differently. And I think so much of the success has been how those two things have been interwoven and the understanding between the two. Right. But what did you do in the beginning? Remember,
in those early days of tech with the entertainment business, very few companies, very few tech companies have successful entertainment plays or the other way around either. And I think a lot of that is because as you try to jam the culture on each other. And I knew early on that we couldn't do that. And Reed recognized it right away too. So one of those days in the history of Netflix, I wanted everyone up there to know what happened in LA. So I had everybody come down from Los Gatos to LA. We toured the Warner Brothers studio, and I rented the Improv. And I had Naomi Odenkirk, who's Bob Odenkirk's wife, who was a talent booker in those days, booked 10 great comedians, and they came and saw Showbiz. And
Wow.
and they had and they went back home and they talked about it for a year.
Yeah.
And it was part of the, early formations of the company. And I remember I used to really love to hear the engineers talk about the experience of having, now that night at the Improv, it was Zach Galifianakis, Sarah Silverman.
Wow.
I mean, it was Patton Oswalt. It was
Unbelievable.
all killers,
Unbelievable.
all killers. So they really had an experience that night.
And was that something that worked both ways? Because you're really talking about building influence and credibility between the two teams. Did it work both ways, that you had to show the entertainment folks how to have more understanding of the digital side of the business too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and we really had to do is had this idea was, don't spend all your energy trying to figure out how to code, figure out how to talk to the coders to get what you need, and vice versa. And the biggest goal for me was, if you're an engineer at Netflix, you work at the greatest tech company on the planet. And if you are an entertainment executive at Netflix, you work at the greatest entertainment company on the planet. And you're both right.
Yeah, you're
true.
both correct.
They're both true.
And it turned out that you were right about that. Yeah. They really did.
And we really
invested. And they really do.
Yeah, and we really did put a lot of energy behind it. And this was in the early days of the tech entertainment, tension, was that the tech companies would fly to LA for the day, and they'd hire a legal team and an agent, and they'd go in and talk to the studios with the lawyer and an agent, and then they'd write a very big check and they'd leave. And they didn't know that the studios were laughing, when they left. And I would tell Reed, I go, we're not doing that.
That is not what we're
not
doing.
I'm not going to move up here. I'm going to stay here. My kids are going to go to school with their kids, and we're going to.
And that's just that. Did you ever feel like an outsider, because you don't come from the studio system or from film school? So was there a part of you that was like, I'm an outsider in this business too?
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's probably my personality generally. When I was growing up, my sister, the neighborhood we lived in, my two oldest sisters, Kathy and Jean, got into a thing with a gang of girls at school. And when my parents went to the school to try to solve the problem, they said she should probably transfer schools. It was a violent neighborhood where we were living. And so we switched schools when I was in junior high school. Mm-hmm. So all my friends went to one high school and I went to a new high school, and I didn't know anybody. And I made friends easily. My friends, if you look back now, all this kind of stereotype high school cliques, I had friends from all the cliques. Like I didn't have one specific one. So I was never really an outsider, but I didn't feel like I was narrowly rooted in any one thing. So I thought Netflix suited me quite well in that way.
Definitely. I feel like your story is so much about taking like unconventional bets in some ways. And I wonder how you've learned to kind of double down and really trust your instincts in your life, in your career.
Yeah. I don't know where it came from, but this notion of risk reward has kind of been my guiding light. Mm-hmm. Like if the prize is big enough, you should take pretty unreasonable risk. If it isn't, don't put things in jeopardy. But in the case of like original programming, it's probably the one thing that he and I did not agree on, or that he didn't see as part of the vision at the beginning. And for me, it was an inevitability. No network or no entertainment brand didn't have its own programming.
Right.
So at the time, I think Reed was trying to solve a different problem, and he was smart. That's the problem that we needed to solve first. And then the original programming was kind of the icing on the cake.
And original program was your thing. That was something that you were like you were at the helm of, I guess.
Yeah. And for me, it did not feel like a monumental bet. I really told when we did
but
deal,
it was a monumental bet, right? When you look at what you've done and like
we couldn't afford it for sure. So it was risky in that way. There's that. But I did tell Reed afterwards, because we made the deal, and I went and told him about it, and he said, why would you, that's a big risk. Why would you do this? And I said, it's a risk reward. I said, if this does not work, we will have overspent dramatically on one show.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. I go, if it does work, it will fundamentally change the course of the business. And he said, that totally makes sense. And we never talked about it again.
I want to get into this original programming thing, because it obviously has been so seismic and touched so many of our lives. But do you have any sort of beliefs or mental frameworks for when you're making those really big decisions that you go back to like time and time again?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you hear, I don't hear as many of the pitches as I used to, very few actually now. But it's what I think is interesting is that it's the same fundamental question about every show you're going to do. Like, is this a world that people want to spend time in? Are these people that I care about what happens to them? And do I want to stick around to see how it ends? Mm-hmm. you know, and you could
kind of feels so simple.
at the end of the day, I think that's true across whatever it is. And then, you know, getting to the kind of essence of what the show is or what it's about or who's going to be in it. All those things, of course, matter because it's all about execution. But it all starts with a great idea. And if you can think about how many times was something a really bad idea, but executed so well that it worked? Very rare.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
I was thinking in the entertainment world, you think something like Avatar might be one of those things that wasn't a great idea. It was basically the Fern Gully was the same idea.
Yeah, you could.
But the execution was so seismic.
Mesmerizing, yes.
Yeah.
But it turned out that way.
As big as the budget for Titanic was, maybe that wasn't a great idea, but the execution was
pretty depressing
so
story, but yes, it really
and
worked out.
And they've already been a Titanic movie,
exactly.
So, but I think they're rare. They're rare. So when you hear a good idea, man, you better focus on the execution of that idea because they're so rare. And if you get them both, if you get the great idea and the great execution, you've got a monster.
You got a monster. So talk to me about original programming at Netflix. How did it come around? What is your part in that? And what does that look like today? Because we all know the unbelievable success that you've had with original programming.
So we were buying licensing for, you know, just streaming rights for, and there was a movie. One thing we did not have was new movies. There was back then the paid TV deals would lock up movies for years. So basically you couldn't license a movie that played in the theater for a service like Netflix for 10 years after it was in the theater. So we were always constantly, anytime a movie was in the wild, which would happen every once in a while, we would take the meeting and try to do it. So we licensed the movie Pan's Labyrinth, just happened to be the pay TV rights weren't tied up. La Vie en Rose was one. So this company who had the rights to Bruno, which is a Sacha Baron Cohen movie, came in to pitch it, you know, do we want to buy the rights? And then on the way out the door, they just mentioned, hey, we're making a series of the British House of Cards, but set in Washington, D.C. Do you guys want to hear the pitch? And I said, what tell me more about that. And because I loved the British House of Cards.
Good. I mean, it was so good.
And he said, so it's Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright are going to star in it. David Fincher is going to direct television for the first time. Ding, ding. So I said, so we started talking about it after they left. And I said, wow, like what is, and this is where a little bit of data you looked at and going in and said, you know, people seem to people love Kevin Spacey movies. They're like, how do they perform on Netflix? How about David Fincher movies? How about these things? How about movies about politics? How about all this? So you're looking at all this swirl of things thinking, if it's well done, this could have a real audience.
But there was no original programming at that time at Netflix. So how did you even have the remit to greenlight something like that? Because I imagine it was so expensive.
Well, I think it was a $100 million investment for sure. But it was one of these things for us at the time. My remit was, let's get programming on Netflix so people will watch. And the more we can grow the streaming, the more we could prove out the model, both for consumers and for the suppliers too. So for me, it's like we had done some this deal with Starz programming. So we got the Starz programming the same time it was on TV. It was a hack of the system. It wasn't, any genius move. But this one was, this is a show that will be the hottest package in television this year. HBO wants it, AMC wants it, FX wants it, everyone wanted it. And I said, so why would they sell it to us? We've never done this before. And I said, we have to figure out there's 1,000 reasons to say no. What's the one path to yes?
What'd you come up with?
It was give them a 2-season order with no notes, would promise them no creative interference.
Oh.
So at that time.
That's big.
It was big at that time.
That's big. If you're David Fincher, you're like, I'll take that.
Yeah. And it was, at the time, it would be very rare to even go direct to series, let alone, a 2-season pickup. So they knew.
So an even bigger bet then.
It was it was very big. But I do think it was that was the clearing price for us. Nobody would sell good things to us that way. We might got lucky.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So we had to really change the algebra here. We had to figure out what is our path in when we have really nothing but promise.
And obviously we all know how that turned out. We're incredibly, unbelievably successful. But was that the thing that then changed everything in terms of like programming at Netflix? That meant that you had the remit to go.
I think what it did was unlock, again, possibility.
Right.
You say, well, we need more of that work. We need those ones that work. And we had a great I also think it's really lucky that we had such a great first set of releases.
Yes.
We had Arrested Development reboot.
Crazy.
House of Cards, Orange is the New Black. We did Lilyhammer, which was this kind of funky thing that turned out to be really important to the company's future growth.
Right.
Which was a show that was made in Norway.
I didn't see that one.
It was, so basically it really was the first launch of an original show on Netflix. after we did that deal for House of Cards, people in town heard about it. And I got a call from an agent, said, Stevie Van Zandt would like to talk to you. And I said, oh my God, I love the East Street Band. This would be great. So I take the call from Stevie. He's so funny and so cool. And he said, I'm in Norway. I came over to produce an album. And these people brought me a script. And it's this really crazy show called Lillehammer about a mobster who's in witness relocation in Lillehammer, Norway. And he basically mobs up this little town in Norway. And he's a lot like the character he played in The Sopranos. So I go, well, can you send me a script or something? He goes, I'll send you the whole show. We already shot it. He goes, I just need to make some money so I can put some music in the show.
So you got to see the whole show.
So I got to see the whole show. And it was a slam dunk. We bought it on site. And so that was our first launch. And it was now one of those things that has become a bit of a superpower for us is being able to produce local language content, and find a global audience for it. And we got their first taste of it. And then it's also because we had the whole show done, we put it all up at once. So it started the kind of all at once. It started the mixed language, international production for the US, all these different things that are so important to our business today.
No, it's so important to your business. And it seems to me like you have this wonderful ability to be both like a friend and a supporter to the creative, but also have this executive language and the executive prowess. How have you been able to walk that line? Who taught you that? Like that's a really big thing. And I think it's something that a lot of people really struggle with. Usually you're like one or the other.
I love the talent. I really love, I totally respect what they do. I totally respect how difficult it is. I got, when I was growing, back to my Phoenix days, the drinking age in Arizona was 19.
Oh.
And which means that you could get away with it when you're about 17.
I always forget that it's 21 in America. I come from a place where it's 16. So I'm like, 19? What?
So I didn't so my friends would, they all like to go into the bars and that kind of stuff. And I didn't dance. So I'd go to the comedy clubs. And in the 80s in Phoenix, there was like a comedy boom and all this great, incredible talent would come through Phoenix. So that gave me kind of an early touch into kind of that culture. I got to know some of them and I would hear them tell the stories about how they did a pilot and they would get these notes on their pilot about like not whether or not the joke was funny or not, but whether I should be wearing a blue shirt or a red shirt, all these kind of arbitrary things. Yes. And I figured that early on that very creative people need protectors. They need someone to help them clear the deck of all that noise so that they can do the best work of their life.
And you think Netflix has taken that on as a corporate disposition, like we will be the friend of the creator?
Yeah, and not to the point where they, that it's bad business. But I think that there's ways to make sure that you're meeting the needs of everybody all the time. So we had this kind of advantage in this creative interference model, which was I didn't have any people. So I had no one to interfere with you. So
there's that.
Yeah. But it gave us the ability to say, if you give people, the right people, the tools they need to do the best work of their life, they want to please. They want to please the audience. They want to please you. They want to do the best work of their life.
So how do you decipher who's the right people? Who do you bet on?
Some of it's intuition.
Right.
A lot of it's track record. People mistake track record and data. Like data is a bad thing and track record is a great thing. But track record and data are the exact same thing. So you've got somebody who, it shouldn't be a big deal to take a risk about Martin Scorsese making a great mob movie. So we made The Irishman. It didn't feel like a big swing at all.
No,
it was expensive.
It's sometimes like the most obvious things. I read something the other day where it was like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and it was like their ability to hire the best CEOs for their companies over and over again. And somebody asked them at one shareholders meeting, like, how'd you do that? And they said, we just look for somebody who has done the exact same job somewhere else similar and had an incredible result. And I was like, it's so obvious, but that'll do it.
Yeah.
But that's essentially what you were doing. You were backing the best in class talent and you were getting out of their way.
Getting out of their way. And that was the thing that won them over. That's the only thing that was standing in the way. Yeah. Because at the time I couldn't deliver. I could compete with the money, but I couldn't deliver the audience yet, which I think is ultimately the most important part. Is you have to be able to deliver the audience.
So
we can do that.
But how did you do that in the early days? And how did you know? Because again, we're talking about seismic shifts in the way people consume entertainment, the way we use technology. How have you been able to stay clear-headed and focused in a time where so much was changing?
Well, I think the discipline function is you have to spend proportionally to how people watch.
Right.
Now, do it wisely. You could do it all day. You make too many bad bets and you're out of the game. You're out of the business. So the goal here is to keep doing it all, to do it in a way that we can keep doing it all day. So to do that, you have to make these very wise decisions. And sometimes you have to have the discipline to say no, even if you love it, even if you love the person, because there just is not a business solution to it. So I think there's always this idea that art and commerce are somehow in conflict with each other. And I actually don't think they are at all. I think they enable each other. They give each other a reason. So for me, it's like I can read a script and say, this is a beautiful piece of art. Mm-hmm. It is just not a piece of business. And I don't want to see this movie. I just don't want to fund it.
Fair. You're like, that's just not for me. You've said that great storytelling isn't built by algorithms, but by passion and risk. And so I guess for somebody, not just in this field, but in any field, how do you learn to trust your instincts in a data-driven world?
Well, first, I think data-informed intuition is a winning formula.
Data-informed intuition.
Yeah. So you have intuition, but and you can back it up or you can challenge it with data all day long.
How do you make sure that the two, like that one doesn't impede on the other? Do you let yourself like feel what you think about something and then look at the data, or are you letting the data inform how you feel?
As animals, we have this confirmation bias we have to be very careful of. Not looking for the data to confirm our intuition, but just saying actually the opposite. It's kind of one of our core culture things at Netflix is farming for dissent.
What does that mean?
You go out and look for people to disagree with you.
I love that.
Yeah. Yes. So farm for dissent. And in this case,
that's an amazing way to say it. Farming for dissent.
Yeah. And I think when you're looking for data, don't look for data to back up your intuition. Look for data to challenge your intuition. And then you feel much better about the decision when you're done, if you really have done that honestly with yourself.
It's so hard for people to do.
And I heard a great thing. I think it was Jeff Bezos said it one time. He said, like, if your intuition and the data don't match, you're probably you might be asking the wrong question. So it's not that don't question the intuition or the data.
Question the question.
Question the question. And it's so true. After I read that,
that's really true. You're asking the wrong thing.
Yeah.
At its core, entrepreneurship is about vision, resilience, and the courage to create something lasting, even in the face of enormous challenges. Bao, Artist at War, tells the remarkable true story of Joseph Bao, whose creativity and determination became his greatest tools of survival. Imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, Bao was a gifted artist who risked his life to save others by forging documents. Even in the most impossible circumstances, he remained a creator, an animator, a poet, and a romantic. His story is proof that ingenuity and imagination can be acts of resistance. The film also tells of one of history's most extraordinary love stories, Joseph's bond with Rebecca, a woman whose bravery matched his own. Like the entrepreneurs who turn vision into reality, Bao shows how creativity, resourcefulness, and the will to build can endure even in the face of destruction. It opens September 26. Visit baomovie.com to watch the trailer and learn more. You can also sign your organization up for group screenings. Again, that's baomovie.com. You've heard me talk a lot about personal wealth and side hustles. And I'll be honest, one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship is finding ways to make my money work for me, even while I'm not working. Here's an example. Imagine you're traveling, maybe taking that dream vacation you've been saving for, or even just away for work for a few weeks. Did you know that you could actively be building that vacation fund while you're gone by hosting your home on Airbnb? If the thought of hosting sounds overwhelming, here's the good news. You don't have to do it all yourself. With the Co-Host Network, you can hire a high-quality local co-host to take care of everything for you. We're talking about creating your listing, managing reservations, messaging guests, offering on-site support, even helping with design and styling so your place looks its best. So whether you're a snowbird heading south for the winter, away on tour, or just working remotely for a stretch, your home doesn't have to sit empty. It can actually be earning for you. Find a co-host at airbnb.com/host.
Do you have, I just wonder, like you as in Ted, the businessman, do you have non-negotiables in the way that you think about like your business, your life, your rituals? Like, are there things that you think this like enables me to do what I do and be good at what I do?
I don't know that in life today that you can have non-negotiables. I mean, I think you have to figure out how to meet people where they are, and what chances are you willing to take, and which ones are you not. I think it's important, but I also think that it can narrow your choices a lot. And sometimes the biggest cost in business you have is lack of choice. So for me, it's like before you have a non-negotiable, you should have exhausted every other path to get there.
You better have exhausted. And that's the beautiful thing, because the more successful you are, the more choices you have.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
You've got a lot of choices now, Ted.
And interestingly, I think when companies get big, people get scared, and they try to protect, when you're in the best shape of your life, that's when you should be able to take, to try the hard things.
So how do you
typically, I think that's when people try to avoid risk.
No, of course it is. But in a massive company like you are, how do you keep the spirit of where you started and leading with, intuition? Like if you've got all of these people, how do you ingrain that in everyone around you?
You have to celebrate wins, and you have to demystify losses. Like you can't have this like mythological fear of losing. So talk about when things wipe out. Like talk about them really open and candidly. Even jab people a little bit. Like, what were you thinking?
Can you do that to yourself?
Oh, yeah.
You can?
Yeah, for sure. And I do it myself. Like, what was I thinking? I say that all the time. So, but I do think it's one of those things where, again, it's back to risk reward. Like there's things about in your business that if they're catastrophic, you should absolutely be very careful all the time. And don't, take very calculated moves only. If it's catastrophic, if the outcome's catastrophic.
Yes.
Most decisions are not. And I think we tend to think of almost every decision as a catastrophic, outcome, when most of them really aren't. So understanding the difference is really, really important. And like I said, demystifying, celebrate when people took a big bet and missed. It didn't wipe out anybody. It didn't change the outcome of the business much. We learned something. Let's not make the same mistake 1,000 times, but go ahead and make 1,000 mistakes over your life,
And obviously, I feel like Netflix's biggest gambles have really paid off. But is there one risk that still really haunts you?
So there was, haunting is not a good example, but I don't feel haunted by it. I never want to forget. And I feel like there was when we did the split of streaming and DVD by mail, it's called Quickster, we formed a new company. And the ultimate thing was the decision was totally sound. Like we had to do that. It was existential if we didn't at some point monetize streaming. So it was definitely the right thing to do. We had a miscalculation in the consumer reaction.
Right.
For a company that is very focused on the consumer, we missed the idea that people who were not directly impacted by a change would be upset by it. Because
you mean like people that weren't even your customers?
Yeah, no, somebody. So basically, if you were only taking DVDs or you were only streaming, you actually got a price decrease in one case and nothing in the other. But if you were doing both, you got basically a gigantic price increase.
Got it.
And so that if your next door neighbor got a big price increase and you didn't, they were still mad at you.
You were pissed. Yeah.
They were still pissed.
Yeah, fair.
So, and that was a miss. That's how we miscalculated, the churn impact from that. But I look back at that and think, again, the haunting is don't forget about all the different aspects of consumer satisfaction.
Yeah, and that's really hard to do when you're in it, like you guys are in it, because you were trying to make your big change, which ultimately paid off.
Right. And if we had just had known the number, I think we might have ultimately done exactly the same thing.
Yeah, you would have just digested it differently.
100%.
100%.
And prepared people for it differently.
Yes, exactly. Do you think about Netflix as something that saved Hollywood or ruined it?
Look, a self-serving answer. I think it's saving. Because here's what a lot of people get wrapped up in the idea of how things used to be.
Yeah.
And there's something to that. There's something great about what inspired me to do what I'm doing now is that stuff that I watched when I was young.
Yes.
So are we making things like that anymore? Those kind of things. So there's something to it for sure. But old habits.
And arguably, you really are. Like I look at Stranger Things that my son, who's 11, just showed me. I never watched it the first time around. I'm like in season 3, watching it with my 11-year-old. And it is like watching my childhood. I feel like I'm watching E.T. or something like so nostalgic and so beautiful. And I feel like that's the difference because at Netflix, the stuff is like so, like it's so much quality to it.
This is what we try. I tried to, like I said, that thing that inspired me, are we doing that for people today? And the big part of that is, have you developed a model that ensures that movies get made and that movies get watched?
Yeah.
That's what matters. So for me, it's like the art form is above the distribution platform or above the business model. But the art form, to me, there is no business model without the art form, and vice versa. So for me, it's like, yeah, if people now would like to stay home and watch movies on Friday night instead of going to the theater, let's meet the customer where they are and make great movies for them. And that, to me, that when you say save or ruin, people who very, very narrowly, people say, my movie theater didn't, may have closed down. That wasn't because of Netflix. It was because people like to watch movies at home. Behavior changed.
Behavior just changed.
And for
it was
me,
inevitable.
It's like, and we have uncovered and discovered and honed a business model that ensures the long-lasting, a long-lasting life for filmmakers and for film lovers. That's great news.
It's great news.
Yeah.
Do you think? Does streaming just survive now? And if it doesn't, like, what is next?
Well, I think I don't know that there's a internet level disruption coming in distribution over the next decade. The internet, it was a pretty seismic shift in things. There'll be changes in creativity, I think, and how things get made. I think which will be very interesting. AI certainly being part of it, but also how AI creates the tools that we use to tell stories even better. Like all those things, there'll be a lot of that kind of disruption that'll go on over the next couple of years. But I don't see a internet level disruption in the kind of distribution business.
You don't, because you don't think that AI is coming to completely do something that we don't even understand just yet.
I think it's creating tools for filmmakers that empower them to tell stories they never could tell before.
And there's nothing in those tools that concerns you that we get rid of, because again, I'm watching, the battle with various different, entertainers with their name, image and likeness and the worries around things like that. Is that something that is worrying to you, or you just think it's all about progress?
No, I think it obviously there's a bunch of, if you think of, Reed and I used to have this argument about whether or not I thought that in some ways the world was better when Walter Cronkite was the source of truth. Because I think having a source of truth was a good thing.
It was very helpful for all of us.
Even if it was wrong. Even if it was wrong, it wasn't wrong.
But there were great things about it.
And then, then you think of all the things that have progressed because we traded that in for the internet and for lots of sources of truth. You figure out the truth, that kind of thing. And so there's an underlying piece to any kind of progress. People, if you're riding your horse around, you probably didn't want the cars to scare your horse on the road.
Fair enough.
There's all those kind of things that happen. You have to make those trade-offs all the time. But don't let it stand in the way. Don't let the possibility of a downside take away the probability of an upside. And that's what I think is happening with the cost of productions getting so high that you look at some of these films. Is it ever good business to make a $300 or $400 million movie if the monetization model isn't moving faster? And these tools can do a very similar thing for a more controllable price.
Yeah, and seemingly I think it's really interesting because we talk about, Netflix's competition as being other streamers or studios, but, I think about YouTube, for example, right? YouTube is where if you're my 11-year-old or my 8-year-old, they're glued to YouTube for as long as I will allow them to be there, which is not very long. But, when you think about what's happening on a platform like that, where it's user-generated content that is actually costing absolutely nothing and kind of this endless, unlimited watch time, how are you thinking about that part of the business?
Think about every innovation since you and I were born. Television, pay television, deep VCRs, DVD players, the internet, the smartphone, the iPad. Through all of those changes, professional storytelling has been a remarkably resilient business. Right? The actual hours of consumption of television are pretty flat. They're pretty.
Are they?
Yeah, for sure. You think they would crater, right? Yeah. Through all this, but they actually maintain. And I feel like there's the positive that comes from all that activity on YouTube, which is it's a promotional vehicle for a lot of long form storytelling that people like to have. And then there's this other place where it kind of meets in the middle, where creators have a lot more opportunity and access to break through because the cost of production is literally in your pocket right now.
Literally.
And you can and distribution is possible too, right? From you never even leave your house. So it's unbelievable for creators to be discovered and figure out, then how do they go on to tell the stories that we talk about 50 years from now?
Exactly.
And so I think it's a great area of opportunity. And I think the YouTube is a complementary in many ways, competitive in some ways, of course, because it's TV time, But for the most part, it's a great vehicle for discovering new talent, for promoting existing stories, and on the side, it's also created its own form of entertainment.
So what do you think that Netflix has that YouTube doesn't then, the other way around?
Well, one is that for a creator, we can do the monetization and share in the financial risk to tell more ambitious stories. And so in that way, YouTube, it's all basically you bring the project, and we'll share in the rewards. For us, it's like we can share in some of the financial risk and enable more, perhaps more aspirational, more ambitious storytelling.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're doing so many different things. We spoke a bit earlier about the exploration with video podcasts. I'm very lucky that I know all about Miss Rachel because I have 2 3-year-olds. So that's a part of my life every day. But also, I had Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, on this podcast. And she spoke a lot about the type of partnership that you've done with her, which is like outside of the show, the As Ever brand. So is that the type of, I'm just trying to think about the mix and the various different parts of the business. Is that more of the direction that you'll go in that will set you apart from the other platforms?
Yeah, look, I think what we have is cultural relevance. YouTube does too. But I would say that we have cultural relevance in a way that most outlets do not. That when you go to a dinner party and someone says, "Oh my God, did you see?" the chances are they have Netflix and they can go home and push play and watch it.
Yeah.
That's a very big thing. And in fact, I think one thing we learned early with Meghan, she has remarkable influence. Remarkable. So when we did the documentary on her and Harry, when we ran the trailer announcing it, hundreds of people broke down every frame of the trailer and would...
We note it. We're seeing this on a micro level right now.
and the $20 shoes that she got from a village that was making these shoes sold out all over the world. And the $1,500 blanket that was on the chair sold out all over the world.
That's some power. That's some influence.
She has incredible power and influence. You could put, and I think that for me, it's like, okay, well, how can we enable this to be a more holistic thing?
Yes.
So that's what that relationship is.
But I mean, the consumer products business is a very different thing, right?
Yeah.
For you guys to go from having the data and understanding that a trailer with those two can do those type of numbers and then have the commercial impact to actually starting a brand, a physical
and by the way, and the documentary
product
itself was also one of the most watched documentaries we've ever had.
Wow.
So it was successful by every measure. Now, I don't think that you can have a consumer business if you don't have a consumer products business, if you don't have a great entertainment business. So that's got to come first.
It's got to come first.
It's funny thing. I don't think much about legacy.
You don't?
No, for sure not.
For the company and for yourself, or just for yourself?
Company for sure.
Yeah, but for yourself.
Personal, yeah. So company, 100%. But I think
that's so interesting for someone like you.
Well, you know what? I read a lot about the history of our business. There's a guy, William Paley, from CBS, who very few people know who he is or what he did. And he changed everything about he took CBS from radio to television, from syndication to owner-operated channels, to creating content for the channels out there, understanding that we can't sell advertising unless people are watching our shows. We have to make great shows. Created the format of color television, basically, that became Pale, that you probably use outside of the U.S. But that was all started by William Paley. So anyone who thinks that anyone's going to, if they don't remember who William Paley is, they're not going to remember who I am. So
you're realistic. Fair enough.
I'm realistic. So don't think about things like on those terms, but think about things like how do you enable things to go to the next level? And if you're thinking about legacy, you probably get more nervous about risk, and you definitely probably get your eye off the prize, which is, again, back to the end user.
Yes.
These people, they've got to be entertained. They've got to love what they're watching. They won't watch ads if they're not. They won't buy products if they're not. They won't stay a subscriber if they're not. So at the end of the day, the whole thing is, how do you bring incredible entertainment to people at scale? When we have 700 million people who watch Netflix all the time.
It's just wild.
Everyone's taste is so remarkably different.
Everyone's taste is so different.
That's why we have to have so much stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
But it's interesting to me because I heard that you kind of set your sights on this $1 trillion valuation, which is by 2030. Am I right in that?
That's not the goal.
Okay.
That's a possible outcome if we do everything else really well. Mm-hmm. That's the idea. Is I think when we think about how do we continue to grow the business on the trajectory we've been growing on, And we're so underpenetrated around the world. It's very possible that we continue to grow on that as long as we execute.
So what are the key strategic moves, but also what are the leadership principles that are going to get Netflix to the next? Because you're a huge, huge part of that. So how do you think about getting to the next milestone for the business?
Well, the core thing is that, at our current size and our current membership base and our current engagement, we're about 5% of consumer spending on the things that we do.
Wow.
We're about 10% of TV time in our most mature markets. So we've got, as long as we can kind of win those moments of truth, we have the movie that you're dying to see, the TV show you have to stay up one more hour and watch one more episode before you go to bed. As long as we continue to do that at the rate that we're doing and just constantly improve on it, we've got so much room to grow that. I mean, imagine when we said double, we double our the base, or double the revenue, double the engagement. You're still in the kind of low double digits in terms of market share. So this is a very big market. We're very good at it, but we have to keep being very good at it to keep ahead of everybody else. And kind of, how do you kind of beat yourself?
Yeah, and
because we focus on that all the time. How do we be better than Netflix from last year? Reed used to always tell us, we suck today compared to what we're going to be tomorrow. So you keep perspective.
Running a business, or even just thinking about starting one, can feel overwhelming, but the right tools can make all the difference. Support for today's episode comes from Square, your all-in-one business partner, making your day-to-day easier. From point-of-sale systems and payments to inventory and customer tools, Square brings everything together in one simple platform, so you can stay organized, sell anywhere, and keep things moving. Whether you're running a cafe, salon, boutique, or something entirely your own, Square gives you flexibility to grow at your own pace and even set up an online store in just a few clicks. For me, one of my favorite spots, of course, is Good American. They use Square, and I always notice how smooth everything is when I'm there. Paying is quick and easy, and because Square takes care of the details, the staff has more time to focus on creating a great experience for me as a customer. It makes a huge difference. Square keeps up so you don't have to slow down. Get everything you need to run and grow your business without any long-term commitments. And why wait? Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go aspire. That's SQUARE.com/GO/aspire. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today.
What do you think that it takes, and this is a more of a personal question, to lead a company from like a DVD mailer company, which is what Netflix was, to the kind of $1 trillion dream of the future?
So I'll tell you, this is back to that early 1999 meeting with Reed. He said something that now in hindsight was very telling, which was that I'm going to build a company that's going to be around way after me. So what he said in that explicitly was, there was going to be a succession. This company was going to be around longer than Reed. So he started thinking about succession a long time before he actually moved on. And he brought me on as a co-CEO, which is unheard of for a founder to bring in a co-CEO. And what he was doing back then was, I think, trying to prove to himself and to the board and to me that this was a good model. And a company that he and I had this kind of unofficial, way of separating the entertainment and the tech side of the business and focusing on those two things. That was never really written in a job description or anything, but that this was a great way to do this and have a successful succession, which would be required if I'm going to have a company that's going to be around after me.
Right.
So, I mean, he's a genius in that way, and he's incredibly generous. The fact that I exist makes no sense, really, in a way. You'd have to have a CEO with a lack of ego to have, the voice and the face of the company so often be someone other than the founding CEO. But he was 100% totally committed to the success of the business. And he understood human nature enough to know that it would take proving. So he set off on this plan to have a succession and to create this co-CEO model. And I don't think the co-CEO model is for everybody.
No.
But for our business, it works really well. And Greg and I have this relationship similar to what Reed and I had, in that our focus is on our deep expertise and our deep passion.
Yes.
And we defer to each other in those things that are what are the things that you know more than I do, and you're more passionate about it than I am. And that's how that solves all the jump balls, which was my biggest concern about co-CEOs down the road would be, well, what do you do when you disagree?
Totally.
So
what do you do when you disagree?
Well, that's it. You defer to each other in the areas of expertise and passion. And then you support each other
no matter what.
And I think that's been so important. And you say, how do you keep doing this?
Yeah.
I think it's a great example. Like last week, I was in Madrid at our 10th anniversary event with all of our talent and the media and the government in Spain. And Greg was in the UK at the Wall Street Journal conference. So somehow the CEO of Netflix was in two places at once. It makes it possible.
Kind of amazing.
Yeah.
That brings a whole new meaning to divide and conquer.
And if you're going to try it, you have to have two people who respect each other,
yes,
who like each other, whose skill sets complement each other. And also, like, I would say this with complete confidence that I don't want Greg to go away so I can be the CEO, and he doesn't want me to go away so he can be the CEO. I never wanted Reed to go anywhere. So you have to have people like that who mostly are concerned with the success of the business and the welfare of the business over their own title or position or career trajectory.
And what happens with Reed now? Do you still speak to him? Because obviously he's such a visionary and such an incredible guy.
All the time.
You still have that connectivity around the business.
Yeah, and it's a great, like for us, it's a great safety net. It's a great thing. Hey, we're thinking about this. What do you think about this?
I mean, we'd all take a little conversation with Reed about anything, wouldn't
100%. Yeah,
the idea that you get to do it about his baby is
a real inspiration.
Who else have you had in your career, like a mentor or somebody that's been important to you as you've kind of been in this unbelievable career that you've had for the last 30 years?
The thing you said about people who've done it before and people, I mean, it's a real feat to have achieved some of the things that one of the great luxuries of my job is I've had the opportunity to meet, in some cases really get to know all my heroes. Like I can't think of anybody yet really that I haven't met yet that I really want to, or that I feel like, oh my God, I can't.
How lucky.
Yeah. And I've taken something from all of those relationships over the years. And, they're by definition, they're older than I am, which was at some point I realized to myself, wow, my heroes, I'm going to lose them. So when Norman Lear passed, for me, this was like a source of great inspiration, creative inspiration, business inspiration, understood storytelling, understood the audience, and also was just like a spiritually centered person, and he would make you think bigger than yourself and whatever challenges you might be having right now. We'd sit down to dinner, and almost every single time he would say the same thing. Imagine how many things had to happen for you and I to be sitting right here, right now. Right? Every single time. Yeah. And I knew we were going to lose Norman at some point. He was, he's 100 years old. But for me, it was one of my great mentors and heroes that I got the incredible experience of spending time with. Recently, I met Dick Van Dyke.
Oh my goodness, you did?
Yeah, and the reason why,
I'm such a huge Dick Van Dyke fan. I can't even tell you.
So when I told you my parents would let me stay up all night watching TV, what did I watch?
Well, you had
Andy
the Dick
Griffith,
Van Dyke
Dick
show.
Van Dyke, Jack Benny, the Burns and Allen, the I Love Lucy. And so I've seen every episode of Dick Van Dyke 100 times. I never got the chance to meet him, and I went out to see him in Malibu.
You did?
We sat for a couple of hours.
Is he in Malibu?
He's amazing, yes.
You might find me walking around trying to find him. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've watched Mary Poppins just because of Dick Van Dyke. I mean, I was just obsessed. I was obsessed with his body movements and the way he had this terrible accent.
Mary Poppins
no, he doesn't.
Him from Mary Poppins from Disneyland that they were going to, when they did a remodel or something, he wanted
Insane.
And it's in his living room.
That's a lot to live with. Yeah. That's a real lot to live with.
And then on the business side, Bob Daly, who worked for Bill Paley, that's how I know so much about Bill Paley, from Bob Daly. To understand, here's the guy who basically, why there's a movie of the week. Like that, to me, it's like that's, the guy who put movies on television.
So what did you do to cultivate those relationships and what because again, you were operating in a totally different time, in a totally different, like Netflix was doing stuff that nobody else had done before. So how did you speak to those guys and make it make sense for where you were?
I think early on, I mean, I'm a fan. At the core, I'm a fan. I think they're used to talking to a fan. And so that was a big part of it. And I think, again, I have this mixed memories of my parents because young and chaotic and all those things were all true, but also they created these amazing opportunities that shaped who I am.
Yes.
When I was like 10 years old, my parents would go to Las Vegas for Labor Day weekend, and I would get dropped off at the Sands Hotel for the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and I would go and watch the show live, and then go back and you get in line and you go back through for 24 hours. 10 years old, alone in Las Vegas, going to this thing. Now, because of that, I saw Johnny Carson, I saw George Burns, I saw all these people who had such an enormous influence on my life and what I wanted to do, and that built my passion for entertainment in so many ways. That because of my parents being kind of reckless, it exposed me to things that I wouldn't have otherwise ever had the opportunity to see and know. So when I talked to I'm a bit of an old soul in that way. So when I talked to him, I could talk to him about, because I have a deep knowledge of not just their work, but what was going on in the world when they were doing that work. So to me, that's the most valuable thing you could have is a mentor and people who gone ahead of you and have done it at a level that you can only dream of.
That you can only dream of. I want to talk to you a little bit about family, because you have a wonderful wife who I know very well, and you've got kids, and obviously you've built this career. And how do you think about your family and what you've been able to do and put all of those things together? What does that look like for you?
It's interesting, Nicole, our coming together was so. Now you look at it and go, of course these two came together. You know, at the time, it didn't make any sense.
It seems so obvious to me.
It didn't make any sense at the time, but boy, it does now. And I just remember when I first met her, I couldn't take my eyes off her. And both because she's beautiful, but also this energy that she had.
But also, I mean, to be quite honest, for a guy like you, from where you were from, you kind of married like a Hollywood princess or something. I don't know how to describe 100%. It, but she's like Hollywood royalty.
100%. And the fact I didn't even know who she was at the time, which is...
You didn't know who she was?
When we met, I did not know who she was. I did not know her family or her
So I know the story because I've asked Nicole. You met at an Obama fundraiser. Yeah. You were very late.
I was very late.
You got told you were late.
Her first words to me were, "You are late."
That seems just like
then
Nicole.
I watched her work, played this room that that she put together, coordinating people. You go there, you go there. If you want to meet the senator, he's not coming to your table, he's going to that table. And I'm like, who is this?
Who is this woman?
Yeah. So that night after the event, we had dinner, we spoke for 3 straight hours. And we were married 8 months later. I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I'm pretty sure you must have been quite close to her family too.
Very. And loved her father and her mother and her brother Alex.
I mean, and for those that don't know, just to talk about Nicole's father just for a second, because
Clarence Avant is one of the most important people in the history of show business. And people think they boil it down to say, you know, the
Godfather
black music.
Godfather of black music.
It wasn't just music, it was everything.
No.
I mean, he got Muhammad Ali a TV special on ABC and negotiated, which changed the whole trajectory of his personality.
Yeah.
So
and Nicole grew up around that. I mean, she grew up
these people who I dreamed about meeting when I was a kid, they were at Nicole's house every day.
Yes.
And for her, it was almost like, she couldn't understand why people were so excited that Harry was at their house, but it was Harry Belafonte, of course.
She's like,
of course.
Oh, him.
Yeah, and every kid has Muhammad Ali doing magic tricks at their birthday party, don't they? So, but what was really great about it for me at the time too was getting to know Clarence and getting to know more about him, and someone who understood what I was doing.
Yes.
My parents, unfortunately, did not really understand, my business.
And listen, nobody can, but somebody like that must have been incredibly
important.
I guess important to you.
100%. I mean, this guy was like the consummate deal maker.
Yes.
And I would making complex deals, like very complex deals, and we'd walk through something he did in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s that had incredible similarities. He, in fact, I think was a big inspiration for me around why you take care of talent. Because they need to. They need to be able to focus on creation. And they can't do that if they're worried about getting crushed on a deal. And they've got to have people to have their back. So all these things, I think, is why he was so respected and so loved. And I really didn't know, his story, which at the end, it was ridiculous. I didn't know his story.
Yeah. No, it's like more, I mean, I watched the documentary and
Nicole made this great documentary called The Black Godfather. It's on Netflix.
It was such a great documentary. But again, I don't think I knew, I don't know, an eighth of anything that was in there. It was really surprising.
About my parents, we're a product of our parents.
Yes, we
are. For better
are.
or worse.
Yeah.
And, for Nicole, she got the better of both of her parents, which was amazing. Her dad basically, I think growing up in that house prepared for the life that we live.
Yes.
In so many ways.
No doubt.
And I told you, her mother, Jacqueline, not only was like just a role model of elegance, but also like when she got into something, she got in deep. So
just like Nicole.
And I'm sure you heard the story, but the spinoff from Bridgerton, Queen Charlotte, Nicole's mother, Jacqueline, was a enormous history buff, and thought it was very important to make sure her kids understood Black history. Mm-hmm. So Queen Charlotte, obviously Black royalty, she tells me one day, someone should make a movie about Queen Charlotte. And I go, no, we did. She's a character on Bridgerton. And she goes, no, the real Queen Charlotte. So she disappears down the hall. She comes back with a stack of books and 2 handwritten letters that Queen Charlotte herself had written that she bought at auction years ago.
Are you
And she
kidding?
goes, get educated on Queen Charlotte, and hands me the stack.
And you're like, okay, I will.
So I went home and did what I should do. I read those books, I read those letters, and I called Shonda Rhimes and I said, Shonda, this character, now that you've introduced her to the world, someone's going to make this movie.
Yes.
You should do it.
It needs to be you.
She goes, let me talk. Send me what she sent. I sent it to her. She's called me the next day, says, we're doing this.
Obsessed.
So that's why Shonda dedicated the first episode to Jackie.
As she should.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So my one last question before I move you to rapid fire. I just want to understand, in terms of your kids, what do you think, given everything you know, what are you teaching your own children about their careers, about business, about what's important? Like, what are the lessons that you've learned that you really want to pass on?
So my daughter, Sarah, is a producer who's just had her first film as a producer into the Tribeca and South by Southwest Film Festival. Very proud. Very proud. My son is an editor. He's very talented. He knew at 12 years old he wanted to be an editor. He and his buddies had a YouTube channel and used to cut videos. And my daughter wasn't sure. She kind of fell into it a little bit. Her moved to New York. Her first job in New York was a PA on Uncut Gems for A24. And, so basically with 2 brilliant indie directors, the Sapti brothers, making an indie film in New York in October. This is hard work. I said, if you come through that and you still want to do this, you found something. And she came out of it on fire. And so she's been working her way through and networking, and she's someone who could solve almost any problem on a set. She's very impressive that way. And Tony, like I said, is a very gifted editor. He went to Chapman for film school. So he went a very different route. Sarah did it kind of on the job. Tony went to school and networked that way. And the one thing I try to impress on both of them, even though they're taking very different approaches, is to be dependable. Probably the most important thing in any job, in any role, is that you can be depended on. Show up when you're supposed to show up. Be the one that people can count on to do whatever it is. And that you'll do that to get to the next place all the time.
God,
So being dependable is so important. And I don't know, it's probably a lost art in some ways, because I think there's a certain entitlement to us, to younger generations that get lost in that thing, like you owe it to the world to show up.
You owe it to the world
You
to
owe
show
it to the world to show up.
You owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's what people really, really forget. It's I love that. No one. It's so funny. That's not an answer that people give. Be dependable.
Yeah. I mean,
pretty simple.
It'll get you pretty far. It'll get you far. It'll get you into rooms that you probably wouldn't have gotten into before, and I think it'll have you'll be high on the list when people are thinking about the next one.
Yeah. It's a really true one. Thank you for that. I love it. All right, on to the rapid fire. We'll go quick. So, first thing you do when you wake up in the morning and the last thing at night?
I'm watching something just before I go to bed. I mean, I watch a lot of movies and television, not just Netflix, but all the competition too. So I'm sure at the end of the night, I'm mostly watching. But the literal unsexy thing I do is take my dogs out to go to the bathroom.
There you go. That'll do.
and then I wake up and feed them.
I'm happy to know that's you.
It's a full circle.
I can't see Nicole in whatever caftan she's like wearing doing the dogs.
Very elegantly doing the dogs. She is very elegantly doing the dogs. I am begrudgingly doing the dogs.
Fair. Okay, there you go. What are you currently aspiring for in your business life?
I think it's amazing to me that 26, I'm into the 26th year at Netflix. I still get out of bed like it's day one. It's so exciting for me still. And the challenges of the business are big and evolving. I haven't had 2 years of net in the 25 that have felt the same. So
That's so lucky.
Yeah. And I just want to keep pushing the business to keep the spirit of that alive and pushing into the next thing all the time so that we are, that hardcore contrarian bet that we are we still doing that? Are we still doing that? Yeah.
And what are you aspiring for in your personal life?
I don't know. I turned 60 this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you for getting there, I guess.
Yeah.
And I really don't have regrets, but
Nice.
and my goal is that I maintain that. I don't want to have regrets. I did tell the kids, I got back to advice for the kids. I told both Tony and Sarah, my only regret really as a young man was that I didn't spend a couple of years in New York in my 20s.
I mean, New York in your 20s, that's a vibe.
Right?
Yeah.
And they said they didn't really understand it. Like,
You're like, you guys go do it.
And I said, yeah, because I go by
Go do that.
Yeah, you will tolerate how crazy it'll be an adventure in your 20s. It may not be in your 30s and 40s when you have other responsibilities.
No,
and
but
so,
New York, London, like a proper city like that in your 20s, nothing can beat it.
And Sarah just turned 30 and she's been living in New York now. She's been there for years and she loves it. She's a New Yorker.
There you
She's
go.
a New Yorker. If it wasn't for Tony decided not to take me up on that.
Listen, 1 out of 2 is not bad. I would be happy. I'd be happy with that.
But I think about my path. That's the one thing I wish I'd have done.
Yeah. That's not a bad
Not
regret
bad,
to have.
not bad.
That would be all right. You can go and spend, your
I can make up
70s
for
in New
time.
York.
There you go.
There's always that day.
It's also an adventure. It's also an adventure in your 70s.
What is a book that changed your life?
There's a book that Joe Franklin, who is a local New York television guy, wrote called The History of Comedy. And it was, I stole it from the school library in high school. And it was, because I couldn't stop reading, I read it over and over again. And it's all about comedy and comedians and the evolution from vaudeville to radio to television to film. And I'm sure I have the book still. It still has the Alhambra High School stamp on the inside.
It probably does.
I wonder what the late
You're
fee
a real
is.
comedy person, aren't you? I mean, one of my favorite things that happens in LA is like the Netflix comedy. What do you call it?
Netflix is a joke.
Netflix is a joke. I mean, I literally, that's my week. I just go to a show every single night and think it's one of the best things that happens in the city. It's the most fun.
Yeah, so comedy has been the root of a lot of this stuff because to me, that's always been a challenged business environment for comedians. And then the idea that, think about somebody like Lorne Michaels, who I think has been the most influential person in the history of comedy.
No doubt.
And I don't think anyone will ever be more influential than him.
I mean, probably not. How do you do that body of work and that legacy?
The number
and
of careers, the number of hours of television and film. And so I think about all those things that again, back to rooted in comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading his book right now. It's phenomenal, Lorne.
I'd like to read that book.
It's a great book.
I mean, he's so incredible. What is something that you valued when you were starting out that you no longer value?
That's a great good. I would say I really valued sleep, but more than I do now, which seems backwards.
It does seem backwards, but I love that.
You know what it was? Because I didn't sleep a lot. I was always like a 5-hour sleeper. So every once in a while you'd get like an 8-hour stretch of sleep and you're like, oh my God, that was the best. But I feel like I'm a little backwards on that now.
That'll work. And what is something that you value now that you didn't back then?
Time.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think it's finite,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ain't it just? Well, this time has been amazing. Thank you so much, Ted.
Thank you.
Love speaking to you.
This is great. Thanks.
Thanks for joining me on the Aspire podcast. For more strategies on how to build the life of your dreams, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.